As you can see here, I actually do have a controller, which is not what I normally use. I normally just use my finger to tap and move around the screen. But today's video is going to be a little bit different than usual. I want to go over how to use a controller in Sneaky Sasquatch. Specifically, I'm going to be racing and going over why it's so much harder and how you can use the controller to your advantage. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have the same controller as me, or if you don't have the same controller, just the same general settings. So this is left, this is right, this is forwards, and this is backwards for me. Selecting an item is A, that also is interacting with an NPC is A. Getting out of a vehicle is B, and opening a menu is Y. And then you can just obviously drag around, change your outfit, whatever. And things are a lot slower if you haven't noticed already, but that's okay. So the first thing we're going to do is go over the S test. Now, I have passed it with controller as well as by tapping my fingers. So you have 32 seconds to beat this. And the way that this controller works, I'm not really too worried about passing it again. The way this controller works is when you move, this is left and right, this is forwards. But backwards and slowing down are the same. So sometimes when I try and turn or go backwards, I'll just go in a circle. Like the car would just spin and I won't know what to do. So especially when you're on controller, it's all about going over again and again and again, because you're not going to do it first try like you could in just tapping. I'm probably not going to be able to beat this, but one of the things I have done, which has helped, is I try and get to certain points in a certain amount of time. So I'm not really too concerned with it right now, but I would want to get to the bottom of the screen by the 20-second mark. Now I'm going to keep going. Hopefully I don't fail this test. I want to show you guys where the bottom of the screen is. So there's a few turns. And right here, you want to be in this spot at the 20-second mark. The reason for this is very simple, because you need to get up this hill. I call it a hill, it's just a turn, and down over here and around this corner. I'm terrible at this. And you want to get to this point at the 10-second mark. I'm already at negative 10 seconds, but you want to get this point at 10 seconds. And the reason for this is on the straightaways, you can just go faster. And I just failed. But when you get to the top, you're going to have around 7 seconds left or 8 seconds left. And that's actually a decent amount of time to try and complete the final turns, because you want to be careful in the final turns, because you don't want to, obviously you don't want to fail when you're so close. Because I actually failed when I had less than half a second left, and that hurts. So you're going to want to just keep going over and over again. One of the things I did that really helped is I took a break. I did probably like 20 times, and I took a break and I did another 20 times, and I finally passed it. So for me, after having done it by tapping, after being able to pass it with my hands, I was able to do it in about 40 attempts with the controller. So one of the big tips that I've come up with is trying to use the backup mechanic to your advantage, because even though it's really annoying, you're going to have to use it, because you're never going to make these turns super smooth, and you're going to fail again and again and again because of it. The next thing we're going to be talking about in the S test is the straightaways, because I just mentioned it, but on the straightaways, you don't want to go too far or too short. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because, especially when I was doing it, I had a lot of incidences where I would go, a little bit too far to the right or left, and I was hugging a corner too much. And as a result, I wasn't able to pass the test. There are obviously ways you can stay in the center if it's possible, but in most scenarios, you're going to have to hug a corner, and in my personal opinion, I think it's better to hug the inside corner, which would be this bottom area where I'm driving right now, versus the top, because when you hit the top, you're not going to have as much room to go around, and if you're on the bottom, then if you miss, hopefully this isn't the greatest, but if you go on this bottom curve, then you're going to have more space to swing around, is what I'm trying to say. When you drift, it's going to be easier to pass. So I'm going to move the out of frame, and as you can see, I'm actually closer to the edge, and it takes time. I messed up there, but the general idea is that you would have more space if you're going to drift. You don't need to worry about it. So that being said, I think that's all I have to say on how to pass the S-test with a controller. Again, this is not an actual controller for an Apple TV, so those controllers might have slightly different functions. Maybe you're going to use the R buttons and L buttons right here. If you have any ideas as to how to better pass the S-test with a controller or by tapping your finger, then feel free to comment them below. I appreciate any kind of help because I'm not always the best teacher, and sometimes the comment section is actually better. Also, more tutorials will be coming with the controller because I think this is really cool and I like this setup. And if you enjoyed this one, if you learned something new, then please consider subscribing. I really appreciate it. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.